Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another midweek meditation, today for Wednesday, April 14th. And I'm beginning today with just a couple verses from the letter of James, James chapter 5, verses 7 and 8. Be patient, therefore, beloved, until the coming of the Lord. The farmer waits for the precious crop from the earth, being patient with it until it receives the early and the late rains. You also must be patient. Strengthen your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is near. Well, I have no great meditation or theological treatise today, but I'd like to share with you a story that I received a number of years ago via the internet. And since we are in the middle of spring and we're receiving some spring rains, I thought to share with you this story. It's titled The Smell of Rain. A cold March wind danced around the dead of night in Dallas as the doctor walked into the small hospital room of Diana Blessing. Still groggy from surgery, her husband David held her as they braced themselves for the latest news. That afternoon of March 10th, 1991, complications had forced Diana, only 24 weeks pregnant, to undergo an emergency cesarean to deliver their couple's new daughter, Dana Lou Blessing. At 12 inches long and weighing only 1 pound 9 ounces, they already knew she was perilously premature. Still, the doctor's soft words dropped like bombs. I don't think she's going to make it, he said as kindly as he could. There's only a 10% chance she will live through the night. And even then, if by some slim chance she does make it, her future could be a very cruel one. Numb with disbelief, David and Diana listened as the doctors described the devastating problems Dana would likely face if she survived. She would never walk, she would never talk, she would probably be blind, and she would certainly be prone to other catastrophic conditions, from cerebral palsy to complete mental retardation, and on and on. No, no, was all Diana could say. She and David, with their 5-year-old son Dustin, had long dreamed of the day when they should have a daughter to become a family of 4. Now, within a matter of hours, that dream was slipping away. Through the dark hours of morning, as Dana held on to life by the thinnest thread, Diana slipped in and out of deep sleep, growing more and more determined that their tiny daughter would live, and live to be a healthy, happy young girl. But David, fully awake and listening to the dire details of their daughter's chances of ever leaving the hospital alive, much less healthy, knew he must confront his wife with the inevitable. David walked in and said that we needed to talk about funeral arrangements, Diana remembers. I felt so bad for him because he was doing everything, trying to include me in what was going on, but I just wouldn't listen. I couldn't listen. I said, no, that is not going to happen. No way. I don't care what the doctors say. Dana is not going to die. One day she will be just fine, and she will be coming home with us. As if willed to live by Diana's determination, Dana clung to life hour after hour, with the help of every medical machine and marvel her miniature body could endure. But as those first days passed, a new agony set in for David and Diana. Because Dana's underdeveloped nervous system was essentially raw, the lightest kiss or caress only intensified her discomfort. So they could not even cradle their tiny baby girl against their chests to offer the strength of their love. All they could do, as Dana struggled alone beneath the ultraviolet light in the tangle of tubes and wires, was pray that God would stay close to their precious little girl. There was never a moment when Dana suddenly grew stronger, but as the weeks went by, she did slowly gain an ounce of weight here and an ounce of strength there. At last, when Dana turned 2 months old, her parents were able to hold her in their arms for the very first time. And 2 months later, though the doctors continued to gently but grimly warn that her chances of surviving, much less living any kind of normal life, were next to zero, Dana went home from the hospital, just as her mother had predicted. 5 years later, Dana had become a petite but feisty little girl with glittering gray eyes and an unquenchable zest for life. She shows no signs whatsoever of any mental or physical impairment. Simply, she is everything a little girl can be, and more. But that happy ending is far from the end of her story. One blistering afternoon in the summer of 1996, near her home in Irving, Texas, Dana was sitting in her mother's lap in the bleachers of a local ballpark where her brother Dustin's baseball team was practicing. As always, Dana was chattering nonstop with her mother and several other adults sitting nearby, when suddenly she fell silent. Hugging her arms across her chest, Dana asked, "Can you smell that?" Sniffing the air and detecting the approach of a thunderstorm, Diana replied, "Yes, it smells like rain." Dana closed her eyes again and asked, "Do you smell that?" Once again her mother replied, "Yes, I think we're about to get wet. It smells like rain." Still caught in the moment, Dana shook her head, patted her thin shoulders with her small hands, and loudly announced, "No, it smells like him. It smells like God when you lay your head on his chest." Tears blurred Diana's eyes as Dana then happily hopped down to play with the other children. Before the rains came, her daughter's words confirmed what Diana and all the members of the extended Blessing family had known, at least in their hearts, all along. During those long days and nights of her first 2 months of life, when her nerves were too sensitive for them to touch her, God was holding Dana on his chest, and it is his loving scent that she remembers so well. The smell of rain. My friends, remember that rain is a blessing, and God blesses us all every day in all ways. Thank you for sharing.